No, I'm assuming that they don't have a problem logging in.
No, they won't. I've checked it before.
Yeah. There's no message, I assume.
For
No, I
the
mean,
attendees
didn't
have
message
gotten a
them. So there's nothing coming. There is
Louis
Louis.
is here.
Can we just change my designation to co-founder? They don't need to mention Chairman Center for Civil Society. Can we just change that to
Okay.
ISPP? Let's just keep the ISPP affiliation. You can clearly see from what I'm wearing, I'm not in Delhi.
Huh?
You can see from what I'm wearing, I'm not in Delhi.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought I can only wear a shirt. Then realize it's getting. I have to keep the heater on too much. So Sagar is not here yet.
Host.
Hi. Okay.
It's been done.
Thank you. I don't know. It's still showing over here.
Maybe you
I've just
re-log in.
changed it. I've just changed it. It might be visible in a second.
So maybe if I relog in, maybe I just see log out, log out.
Yeah.
Hi, Kuku. Good morning.
Sagar.
Hi, Sagar.
Good morning. We also have a few attendees joining us.
Your mirror is reflecting your whole house.
So there was this one room that we used to have as a study, which has now become the nursery for all toys.
Do you just blur the background?
I will, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's still showing this. It's still showing.
Do you control that, Kuhu, or Louis controls that?
I haven't put it, so clearly I've not done anything. I don't have that on mine. And also, yours, you can only see co-founder and dean ISPP and then founder president that's sent. So it doesn't make sense to put the other stuff in. I know, Parth, can you see when you look at your description?
Huh?
It just says co-founder and dean ISPP and then founder president at sent. That's pointless. The full.
Oh, I can't see that. Okay. I'm only seeing on my screen only Parth Shah.
Just below that.
No? How? Let me see.
Below Parth Shah, it says.
Oh, yeah. Now I see it.
Yeah.
So
And it's pointless.
You can go to change panelist experience. And there you can.
But I haven't put that in. Can one of you guys do it, please?
Let me look at it. Can you make me
put that in?
I did it. It's not visible. I changed it, but it is not taking it. Let me try it again.
Can you make me the host, Kuhu?
You are the co-host, Parth.
If you make me the host,
sorry,
I can
Sagar.
change for Parth as well. If you make me the host, I
Yeah.
can for him. Yeah.
For both of us, please.
Yeah. So attendees are already there with us.
Sagar, I've made you the host. I'm making Parth and Louis also the host.
Perfect. I'll just change the appearance.
You don't make us the host. It's okay.
Sagar, now you have to do it.
No worries. Yeah. Hope this is okay. Louis, does this work?
No.
No, I mean, it says co-founder ISPP. Lock off the CCS. I don't know why we're even putting CCS.
Okay.
Remove कर दो CCS का remove कर दो.
Okay.
Just say, I mean, either co-founder ISPP, which is fine. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So we already have a set of students joining us. We
We
can
have
wait
9
for a
attendees.
minute. Yeah.
11 o'clock. Let's get started.
Yeah. We'll wait for a minute for a few more people to join in. Hi, everyone. Good morning. We're just managing our backend. And we'll wait for one more minute for a few more attendees to join with us.
We already have one question from Shalini. Why build a career in public policy?
Great. Thank you, Shalini, for the question. We're going to come to that. And we have the two best people with us this morning, Lewis and Parth, who can answer this question with a lot of detail and examples for us. Great. So we have Diksha, Ganeshan, Naveen, Raju, a lot of people joining us. There are a few more in the waiting room. Lovely. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Sagar. I work as a strategic advisor for the admissions office at the Indian School of Public Policy. With us, we have the core people at the Indian School of Public Policy, Dr. Parth Shah and Mr. Louis Miranda, who are the co-founders of the independent school. And Mr. Shah is also the dean at the Indian School of Public Policy. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. We are hosting our first Ask Us Anything session that's designed for people who are looking forward to build their career in public policy with one of the most innovative programs that the country is witnessing, which is the PDM program at ISPP. Kuhu is also there with us, who looks at the admissions and outreach activities at the school, who can help you throughout the process as you chart your journey to join the institution. So without taking a lot of time, maybe we can start with the first question that I might want to put across, because a few of you know about the school, a few of you might have questions about this, and who better than Louis to answer it. But it'll be great to start with this whole idea of what the Indian School of Public Policy is. Louis, over to you.
So thanks, Sagar, and good morning to all of you. As you can see, I'm dialing in from Mumbai, which is why I'm wearing a t-shirt and why everyone else is also dressed up, because they're in Delhi. We started the School of Public Policy because we believe that if India is to grow at a significant manner, we have to have better policies. I've been a beneficiary of public policy, and I'm going back to the first question also, which is why public policy? I've been a beneficiary in my career of public policy, but I did not realize it when I was in those times. Let me explain a bit more. In 1994, I had a chance to start a new bank in India called HDFC Bank. Today, it's India's largest bank in the country by market cap. And that was a public policy change. I didn't realize it at that time. And only after I got to know Parth and got more involved in the public policy space did I realize that. And then in 2002, I had a chance to set up IDFC Private Equity, India's first infrastructure fund. And again, it was a public policy decision to allow more private sector investment in the country. So both of these experiences helped me both professionally as well as financially. And that's the power of public policy. How can we take those two instances and make it 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, etc.? That's what we want our alums to do. And that's why we started the Indian School of Public Policy, for us to really create the next gen leaders for a rising India.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you so much. We have a few questions, guys. Thanks for keeping to sort of add your questions. We will come to all of them. But before we dive into the webinar, we have with us Dr. Parth Shah, who has been one of the people who has really sort of envisioned and developed this program over the last few years, the PDM program. A unique program, the way we see it, it talks about public policy, design, and management, the three key sort of streams that are gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of industry acceptance at this time. So, Parth, it'll be great if you could, in this morning, sort of give us an idea of especially what's the program about, what's the intent, the vision, but more importantly, why the name that has three very distinct fields of public policy, design, and management.
Thank you, Sagar, and good morning, everyone. It's great to have you on this first Ask Us Anything program. Maybe I can add one line to what Louis mentioned about the inspiration for Indian School of Public Policy. As you know, I worked at the Center for Civil Society, and in the public policy advocacy work that I was doing there, I saw that large number of government officers, IS officers, and even ministers had difficult time in figuring out how to assess public policy options which are on the table. Right? So they had, of course, consultants available to them, but most of them came from MBA background. Very few had any public policy experience. And most of them kept suggesting that it would be great to have someone who also had studied public policy. Right? And a part of what we used to do at CCS, also training young people, we decided that that's really a great way to help our nation building efforts. And therefore, the Indian School of Public Policy. I would also add that it is a one-year program, and the PDM, the name that you highlighted, has been chosen with very careful thought. Right? So, of course, public policy is there in the design, in the name, but the second is design, and the third is management. Right? And we had a big debate about where to put the comma. So it's a public policy design and management without a comma. And we thought that's not really what we mean by it. What we mean is that design thinking has to be at the center, at the heart of public policy. And maybe I can tell you a quick anecdote from a colleague of ours. So he got a PhD in social work, was working with a couple of villages, went back to one of the village, and he knew that there was a problem in the village where women had to go long distance, about 2-3 kilometers every day to get access to potable water. So when he became a PhD, he had some influence in the government. So he got the local collector to install a hand pump in the village. Right. After a couple of months, when he went back, he thought, no, women will be very happy and welcome him to the village with open arms. Turns out that women were quite unhappy with what he had done. Right. So he actually had tried to help the women of the village by putting a hand pump. The women were unhappy about what he had done. And you ask yourself, why is that the case? Why would women be unhappy? And when you pause for a second, you realize, of course, I can also open up to the others, but you realize that that was the only time women could get out of the house, right? So the whole day long, they are stuck in the house. That is the only time they can get out of the house, right? And be able to meet with other women, share their stories, and find some support among themselves. With the hand pump, the one opportunity that they had got lost, right? So I think the story is very important to understand that the public policy problems usually are defined by people like us and solved by people like us, right? We do not include the public in the public policy. And the design thinking is actually a way of training the future policymakers to think through the eye of the citizen. Right? Design thinking is ultimately about customer-centric, user-centric design, right? And that's really what is needed in public policy in India, is to move away from expert-driven policy making to citizen-centric policy making. And that's really is the key focus for the program. And that's why the name public policy, comma, design, and management.
Thank you, Parth. In fact, thanks for sharing the story. I would really want to add at this time about the program. What I at least learned at my time and sort of my engagement with ISPP is that the program is not very theoretical in nature, but it is with all these people who come with so much of experience in delivering policy that you really get to study through cases. You get to hear experience that they've captured over their years of career. So you are sort of really immersing what the real world groundwork situation in public policy requires. I think it's a good time to take the two questions that Shalini has asked us. And maybe Louis, you could help us answer this question. But Shalini has asked us, why study public policy?
So I did talk about it a bit earlier as to the fact that if we want to be a Viksit Bharat or a strong India or a rising India and grow much faster than what we've done before, we need better policies. We need people who can define better policies. Parth, for example, gave us this great story about water pumps in villages. And there are so many situations where people have come up with policies which didn't work and therefore, needed to be done in a more efficient manner. That's what we sort of teach at ISPP and hope that you will go out and change the world. Secondly is that I'm a chartered accountant. I've done my MBA But I've never really learned how do I work more efficiently with the government? How do I design a policy in a better way? I'm old school. I sort of, 30 years ago, we never studied design thinking, etc. Now, a lot of people talk about that, but they don't talk about it from a policy perspective. That's what you play around with over here at ISPP. We have something called the Policy Praxis Lab. And every week, you'll be seeing your classmates looking at the work that they're doing, the research that they're doing in different, how will you design an intervention and make sure that it is designed properly. So that's, and then there's also the need, and we'll talk a bit more later about what are the various things that we teach at ISPP, but it's understanding the basics of how to look at data. How do you take decisions based on facts as opposed to intuition or just a feeling? And so that's really why I believe strongly that what public policy, what the MBA was over the last 30 years, what engineering was before that, what software engineering was in recent times, we're going to see a lot more focus on what policy is, because we're seeing the government more and more in our lives. They're there as a customer, they're there as a supplier, they're there as a competitor, as a regulator, as a taxer, which means that they're a partner, as a sort of community player. They're all over us. And therefore, how do you interact with them in a more efficient manner? That's from the corporate and civil society side. And then within the government, how do we do that? And again, we'll talk a little later about what our alumni have been doing and the fabulous stuff that they've been doing in various parts inside and outside the government. So so that's why I strongly believe that if we don't have people who understand public policy well, we're not going to be able to grow our country. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Louis. In fact, your in parts response also answers Hargun's question, which is about how public policy and management sort of stand together. But I think this is a good chance to, because there are questions that are about.
Can I just come back to the point on management and public policy? Because there's always that tendency to sort of go and say, okay, let's teach more management as opposed to public, because that's something which people understand, etc. And we realize that, it's important to understand management in dealing with people, and we do that. I run something called the Antaran Leadership Lab at ISPP, where we talk about leadership, etc. But the main focus is really how can we develop better policy measures? Are you going to become an MBA after a year at ISPP? No. Are you going to be able to go and change the world in a more effective manner? I believe yes.
Yeah, I think that's where the public policy is at the core of the program. But would you also want to shed some more light on specifically the employment opportunities for public policy graduates? Because there are questions coming in on that. And in what ways would the ISPP curriculum really help them get into the industry? Because a lot of people have actually messaged and sort of sent in the chat that they're not from the programs that are in policy, or they don't have a background in policy.
Okay. So first of all, for all of you who have no background in policy, I'm a co-founder of ISPP. I have no background in policy. So let's be very clear. It is not rocket science, but it is also a strong discipline. If you have a passion for India's growth, you're a public policy person. That's the way I look at it. Of course, Parth, my co-founder and partner and buddy, has spent the last 30 years looking at all these issues related to policy. I've been more on the business side. And you don't necessarily have, but you need to have a certain passion for wanting to see a better India. I think that's really the intent that is there. Obviously, you need to have a certain academic rigor also, because it is a one-year program and it's a tough one. So you need to have that sort of focus over there. Sagar, I think I sort of strayed a bit, but we come back to the question you asked me.
So the question was, what are the kind of employment opportunities and maybe some examples of our graduates who have worked in the program and entered the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So our guys, we train people, and when we started talking about what is it that we want to do, we wanted to create capacity in Samaj Sarkar Bazaar. And we've really seen that happen with a lot of our alumni who've gone out over there. Maybe I'll talk about this through three stories about three of our alumni. Himanshu is a colleague of ours, an alum of ours from our first batch. very passionate about wanting to have an impact in life, in people. He studied engineering at BHU, worked for a little while. And when we started, COVID immediately hit us. And so he and the Ministry of Health reached out to us at ISPP and said, can you help us with some of your students? They want alums here to help us, tackle the whole COVID challenge. And he went and he put his hand up and was in the COVID war room for the next sort of year and a half or so. And and this was an interesting time because people were worried about getting out of the house, and he was going every day working actually in the Ministry of Health. His family told him he's running a big risk, but that's what he was very keen about. And he graduated in 20, so he's been working for 4 years. And he's still with the Ministry of Health, and he's done different things over there. He's been now an OSD to one of the joint secretaries, but he's worked on in the COVID forum. He's worked on the digital mission, etc. And that's something which he's done very effectively over there as I see it as a very proud alum of what we have and impacted work in the government. Then let's look at the corporate side. Another colleague from his batch, Soham, who I recently caught up with. After he graduated, he worked in an organization called IAMAI, which is the trade association for the internet players in the country. And he worked over there for a while. He then joined a crypto company and was thrown into the deep over there. And as he was telling me that, the work that he was doing is something that someone who's got 10 years of experience would be doing. He had to go and negotiate with the regulators about the rules, etc., that came about, and found that to be something very passionate, which he and really enjoyed being thrown into the deep in that respect. He then decided to go study further because he was interested in trade, and he went to the World Trade Institute in Geneva and did a program over there. He then worked with the World Trade Organization, and has come back to India now in Mumbai and working with an insurance sort of broker, working with clients all over the world on ensuring political and geopolitical risk. So you see someone who's been transitioned from being in a trade association, gone and worked in the private sector on policy change, studied further overseas, and then came back and now is working on geopolitical advisory. And he's actually going to be doing a presentation to a private equity fund that I currently advise. So that's another example of someone who's gone over there. And then I look at Pankuri, who to me is a fabulous person. She came to us straight from college. She had not studied public. She had not worked anywhere. She had not studied further. And she was very clear what she wanted to do. No work experience at all. Forget about relevant work experience. No work experience. And Pankuri said very clearly, I want to join PRS. I want to work with the legislator. And that's what she did. She joined PRS. She worked in Meghalaya with the member of parliament from over there. Got so excited about it. And she had the distinction of being the lowest paid alum in her graduating class. She worked very diligently with that minister for a year, then got an assignment with the World Bank to carry on working in the Northeast. And from being the lowest paid alum in her batch, she became the highest paid in the second, and by the time she reached the second year, because she was willing to make that investment and not focus on what is my salary immediately after joining. She then worked with the World Bank, did exceedingly well, and then went on now to study further at the London School of Economics. And now she's doing a program with one of the fellowships over there. And again, just worked very hard in terms of what is it that she wanted to do. So that gives you an example of how we've had people work in Samaj, Sarkar, and Basar, and had an impact in their short careers post ISPP.
Yeah. Thanks, Louis. In fact, there are very interesting questions on careers that have come in, and it will be good chance to sort of take a few of them at this time. But there is one question from Raju, who has written that I have over 27 years of experience. And you talked about the diversity of the cohort, where you said that the age is really sort of there, and maybe you and Parth could talk about that. But there is a candidate who says that 27 years of brand transformation and marketing experience in India and abroad, and now I'm coming back home and want to contribute to India's growth by leveraging the experience. So how would the program, the PDM program, really add value to somebody who comes with this much of work experience?
Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sure. One thing which we started, we've had all the discussions, what should be the age group, should we have an age cap, should we have a floor? And we said we just want to have a diverse batch of people who everyone will learn from their experiences. So we have people with no experience, we've had people with a significant amount of experience, we have people who've attempted the UPSC for many years and not succeeded and have come on board. And it's interesting, with all of them, they bring in a wealth of experiences, which is fabulous. And that's really what is the thing. So one of my friends had this lovely quote where he would tell his students, hang out with people who are different from you. You will learn a lot more. And that's what we try to do over here. For example, at the Antarang Leadership Lab, we break our team into squads. And in the initial years, people say, but I want to be with my friend. And I said, no, because when you go to work, you don't decide who your colleagues will be. You're put into a situation. So we deliberately try to create diverse groups so that you also learn through the Antarang Leadership Lab how to work with people who are different from you. How do you sort of work with someone who could be, got a lot of experience? So, for example, I've been told in one of the sessions, Louis, this is basic. I've done that before. I said, in this situation, you can actually help the people in your squad because in some other area, they would be helping you. So yes, you're 27. You've been in stuff which is in the corporate side. Perfectly fine. I'm 63 years old. I've been in accounting. I've been in banking. I've been in venture capital. I've been in private equity. I've been in infrastructure, and I've been in the nonprofit space, in grassroots leadership development and school education, and now in public policy. Why can't you?
I think, as Louis mentioned, there's a lot of peer learning. So there's a lot of group work that happens in across all the courses at ISPP, right? And therefore, I think diversity plays a very important role in that peer learning process. Quite often, one or two people, for example, would lead an economics tutorial, and people who have not come from economics background or social science background get support not just from the faculty and our learning associates. Obviously, they are there. I think a lot more happens from peer to peer. And there are informal groups they form. Some people are very good in data and stat. Some haven't had much experience or forgotten a few years ago when they have done that in the school or college, right? So I think diversity is a very important part of design in a sense that we want people from diverse background, not just age, but also experience, right, of the different kind they bring to the table. We also had, for example, medical doctors. Last batch, we had a dentist, right? We had few architect students, right? So there are many people, I think, and quite rightfully in my view, thinking that I have developed my skill set and expertise in a particular domain in the last 10, 12, 15 years, right? How can I apply that understanding to a larger domain of nation building, right? And I think that's really is the connect that public policy provides, right? So I think it's important for people to think that they can use their background, right? The architect student obviously is very good in urban planning, right? And looking at public policy about urbanization, which is one of the key challenges that India is facing, right? So having architects, for example, to study public policy is a great, I think, great thing for India, right? And I think it's a great career opportunity for those who take that path.
Thank you, Parth. In fact, talking about diversity, you just added to the fact that it's not about age, but it's also about how we really build the cohort at ISPP. It's very I would say it's the way the cohort of PDM at ISPP is built is a very curated selection of students who can add value to the cohort, not just there to learn, but also to sort of bring their own expertise to the classroom. So there's a lot of peer learning happening. Thank you so much. But I think that there is an interesting set of questions that I've added into the chat box, and we're looking at those part, which are about this whole idea of how is the PDM program different from a regular Masters of Public Policy in other schools. And you talked about 1 year. So people have sent questions about why 1 year and why not 2 year. There are questions from somebody. So we have a question from Mayank who has actually asked, can I make a career in academics after the PDM course? Primarily because it's a 1 year one. So if you could talk about all this and why was this really a selection of one-year program, which is not very common in India, and about the program.
I think I would say there are three or four things which are quite unique about ISPP and the PDM program, right? First of all, we are an independent policy school. What that means is that the faculty that we have is all either have worked in public policy or working in public policy, have done research, advocacy, design, implementation of public policy in India and some of the cases abroad, right? So we don't have faculty who are professors of economics and teaching one public policy course, right? Or a professor in political science department and teaching one public policy course, or a professor in sociology or psychology, because behavior economics is very important, right? So we have dedicated faculty who do work and have built career in public policy, right? And I think that's really the unique distinction compared to any other policy school. Most policy schools actually draw faculty from different departments, which already exist in the university, right? And then create a public policy program, right? So faculty is in a relevant field, but not really in public policy, right? And I think what ISPP provides, given that we are independent school, is that unique faculty, world-class faculty, actually not just from India, from around the world. As you know, we also have a tie-up with the Institute of Chicago, right? And the faculty from there also come and teach at ISPP. So I think that's really first and most important distinction I would draw between PDM or ISPP and the other policy schools, right? Second, I think, is our curricular design and the curricular philosophy, right? And we capture that in the acronym SPELL, SPELL, right? So S is for skills. So we have a list of skills that we have sort of decided in consultation with various people in government and in the industry, right? Okay, what are the key skills that you would want to have a public policy graduate when you hire them? And so we focus on those skills. There are hands-on skills that they gain, right? As also part of the Antrang Leadership Lab. So S is for skills, P for political economy, which is the sort of diverse interdisciplinary field of economics, political science, sociology, psychology, right? All of that provides the theoretical framework to think about public policy. So that's the P part of it. E for ethics. I think we are probably the only program which focuses particularly on ethics. And we also have introduced an oath, the ISPP oath of ethics. At the time of graduation, all our graduates actually take that oath. And the oath has become a part of the curricular design. We discussed that from the beginning at the orientation when you join the ISPP program. From that day onwards, we keep thinking about the principles and values which are in the ISPP oath, right? So ethics is also a very important component of how we think about public policy. L is for leadership. Luis talked about briefly about the Antrang Leadership Lab, and that's really focus of developing you as a leader, right? Leading yourself and leading others. I think is important to understand who you are and how you lead yourself first, right? And that's really the focus of the lab. And the last L is lifelong learning, right? So we emphasize the fact that whether you go to 1-year program or a 2-year program, there's only so much you are going to be learning in the program, right? And the public policy is a dynamic field. What was valid, appropriate, right 10 years ago is no longer the case, right? The world changes so fast, technology changes so fast. You need to adapt your policies to the current world. And therefore, lifelong learning is very important. We work very hard and very closely with our alumni. Actually, tonight, Luis won't be able to join us, but tonight we have an alumni annual day. So we are gathering at a club in Delhi to discuss and learn each other's stories, understand what is working, what is not working. Some of the faculty members will be there. So I think, so that's curricular philosophy, and the structure is very unique compared to many other policy schools, right? It's a 1-year program. One fact is that we want many more people to join public policy. As we discussed, our motivation behind ISPP is to create people, next gen policy leaders for a rising India, right? And so we want more people. So a 2-year program is a 2-year cost, right? Not just the tuition fee that you pay, but also the foregone income that you could have earned, right? So by doing a 1-year program, we want to make sure that there are more people who can afford to join the field of public policy and thereby join the enterprise of nation building, right? Secondly, I think it also, I have seen, as you know, I studied abroad in the US, taught in the US. So I have seen the program. Second year program usually doesn't do much in many cases. And we thought that we can make the first year rigorous. Now, I would emphasize that, as Luis emphasized earlier, it's a very rigorous program. If you're looking for an easy way to a policy entry, then ISPP is not for you, right? So it is a one-year program, very rigorous program. You really have to work hard to do well in the program. And if you don't work hard, you won't graduate. It's as simple as that, right? So I think we are very strict about making sure that our graduates acquire the basic skills and wisdom and ethics that they need to build a career in public policy, right? So I think that's the other distinction I would say. And maybe last one, which is probably I think unique in other forms, but is experiential learning, right? So that's, sorry, I think we are joining from home, so we are going to get some home noise in the background. So experiential learning, we actually have a policy praxis lab, right, where you apply what you learn in the classroom on a regular basis. Lab runs throughout the year. It's a year-long lab that we run. For example, this year, our students, scholars actually did a survey with Asar, the Pratham, in one of the local neighborhoods, low-income area, and collected data on education levels of the children in that area, right? So that's a hands-on experience of designing survey, how to implement survey, how to analyze data that you yourself have gathered. They went to Hardoi, which is off-site in UP, where they worked with the communities and with the foundations there to understand the local challenges, think about, and this is what the design thinking course took them to the Hardoi, and to apply the design thinking principles to understanding the challenges from local community, right? So I think across the way, and lastly, I would say we have internship program, which is a 2-month internship that you do at the end of the 10 months of the course. And that really is a very good opportunity to learn. You also write a report on your internship. It's not just something for a placement purpose, but also is very important in terms of what you're applying, what you learn, and what you're learning as part of the internship program.
Thanks, Parth. This is really sort of giving a full flavor of how the program is and how it runs. But I think it will be great time if you could also talk about the campus location, because you're talking about points of difference from the PDM program and the MPP program. And the MPP program generally is offered by most universities who we know are at very green campuses outside cities, built in a very different way. But the ISPP campus in itself is something which allows for a lot of opportunities. So you talk about that, that'll be very helpful.
Yes, I think we are very proud of the fact, and we decided that from the very beginning, right? When we are sort of thinking about where to locate ISPP, that we want to be in this center of the policy ecosystem, and which is Delhi, obviously. And within Delhi, we are in South Delhi. We are less than 10 kilometers away from the parliament, from the North Block, which is the PMO, from the Supreme Court, right? So all the branches of government are within very short distance. So that certainly is a huge advantage. Of course, not just central government offices, but also state government and the municipal corporation, right? MCD. They're all very close by. So you can work across the 3 tiers of government, the local, state, and the union, right? By sitting in Delhi. And so that's a really great leverage in terms of the access we have to the people in the government. Secondly, I think it's also has been possible for us to attract very high caliber faculty. Being in sort of heart of the city, right? It's no longer long commute for them to go 3, 4, 5-hour drive to get to a campus, right? So we're able to attract a lot of faculty who are visiting India from abroad or visiting from within India, coming to Delhi for various conferences, right? And the third is conferences. I mean, Delhi is a conference sort of mecca, right? This is actually high season of conference in Delhi, as you know, December and Jan, and be able to attend. So we actually have a tie-up with some of the key conferences that happen in Delhi. And our students actually get invited to those conferences, not just attend, but also they celebrate at the end and they join the dinner gatherings and thereby be able to network with the people who have come to those conferences, right? So I think I can't imagine a better place. We are really at the heart of a policy ecosystem, and there is no better place to learn policy than being in Delhi.
Thank you, Parth. Given we're talking about opportunities and the Viksit Bharat report that was published earlier this month has gained so much of interest across the country. It has been just been covered by all newspapers. It has gained that interest. But Louis, would you want to take an opportunity to add about the kind of opportunities that come to students with not just the course, but the kind of thought leadership that the school established, the kind of the sort of large consultancy work that the school takes up, and all the kind of opportunities that come along with that? So, Louis, you're in mute.
Thanks, Sagar. The experience today is different from what it was 5 years ago because we've grown as an institute. We have alumni who can interact and create opportunities for our scholars, but also the other stuff that we do beyond the PDM program. We launched our first flagship report this year, led by O.P. Agarwal, who is one of the doyens of administrative reform in the country. He's a faculty member of ours. And 5 of our students actually worked as interns on this product, and worked in it. So later on, if any of these get into law or get implemented, those five scholars of ours can say, we were part of that. Their names are in the report and they're part of the story. Our next flagship report is on how do we have universal healthcare coverage in India. How do we make healthcare more accessible, affordable, and available? And that again is being led by Dr. Srinath Reddy, who is the doyen of public health in the country, and he teaches health at ISPP. So here again, people, if you want to really be able to take a role in changing the health sector in the country, here's a chance to do so. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be involved in administrative reform report and therefore work in administrative reform. It's just a platform to let you learn how to do research and how to prepare a report. You may end up doing something very different later on in life. So that's what we do with the reports. We're launching our first center, which is the Center for Universal Health, which will be again led by Dr. Srinath Reddy. And that's going to be looking at a variety of things, including straight interventions. What is it that we can learn from it? And that's where all our scholars are actually going to be interning over there at the center and getting hands-on experience with it. Parth talked about how we sort of had some of our scholars do the immersion lab. And it's really about how do you get the hands-on experience over there. And finally, our latest foray is on advisory work, which we do. And our first client is actually related to the government, and it's on developing the homestay policy in India. And again, that's another opportunity for our scholars to go ahead and work on defining real life situations over here.
And there are also many other initiatives that ISPP undertakes, right? Just give you one example of it, where the scholars are very actively involved in very large numbers, is WIPP, Women in Public Policy, right? And that's there are various components to it. Just yesterday, we had our first consultation with the sort of advocacy officers who work in the executive branch of the government, and try to understand, what is the role of women within the government, what are the various positions they occupy or not occupy, what kind of leadership and mentoring support that they have, which is sort of given to them as a woman, right? Not just what is generally available. So I think that's a huge area of work in terms of research, consultation, and publication that would happen under the WIPP initiative. And that's really run, guided by the scholars of ISPP. So I think there are initiatives of those kinds which provide a great opportunity for sort of applying their learning and, of course, networking with people who are very prominent and well-placed and experienced in the field of public policy.
Thanks, Louis. Thanks, Parth. Parth, I'll probably want to add a follow-up question that has come in from Shivalika. It's mainly on the idea of what you shared about the program, but she's asked, how do we understand exactly what kind of policy formation interests us and which area to work in? What kind of public policy can we study? But I think, would you want to link it with the idea of the domains that are offered at ISPP and how students who come with a certain interest area where they want to contribute and create impact could look at?
I think you are right. There are quite a few students who come with a very clear idea of what they want to do and which domain they want to work in, right? So we guide them through the process in terms of help them to sort of focus on those domains. So There are actually several domains which are being offered. Sometimes it's between 5 to 8 domains, depending on the interests of the incoming batch, right? Uh, our idea behind domain is also not just to focus on 1 or 2 domains. Of course, you can choose those if you already know which domain you want to specialize in. But many do not really know. They're exploring, right? So they want to, there's some idea about what they want to do, but they also want to understand what really is required to work well, to do well in a particular domain. So our idea of a domain is to help you go deeper in a subject matter, right? So you go deeper into subject, you understand what it takes to go deep in a subject matter, right? And you can, once you have developed that understanding, you can apply that sort of framework to any other domain, right, that you are interested in later on. So none of us are going to work in one domain throughout our life or throughout our career, right? So you need to acquire tools of going deeper in a domain. And that's what we try to do at ISPP, that you choose your domains, go deeper in those. But this, it is not that you are restricted to those domains, right? You will take those tools, approach, understanding, right, to other domains. And we also encourage people to apply those tools to other domains. So for example, when you do a research paper for a course, it'll be very different. There are different courses requiring different kinds of work that you need to do. And so you need to apply your understanding of 1 or 2 domains to other domains also. So I think that's really is focus of the domain is to develop the deeper expertise and understanding of what it takes to develop deeper expertise.
Thank you, Parth. I hope that answers your question, Shivalika. We're also sort of coming close to an hour, and I think it's good time to sort of take up the questions that most students will have who are attending this session. But Kuhu, if you would want to talk about briefly the application deadline, because we are, all the students are looking forward to apply to the PDM program, and you could give a brief idea on what the selection process for them is.
Of course. Thank you, Sagar. So to all those people who are interested in applying for the PDM, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, perfect. So the deadline for the application process for PDM course is on 23rd January. But yes, having said that, we have an early bird offer running so that anybody who applies before 31st of December would get a waiver of 25,000 on the fee. And of course, they would be exempted to pay the application fee. So sooner the better.
Okay, thank you. And could you also add in the selection process of what they should expect after the application that is submitted?
Okay. So once they submit the application and the shortlisting of the application is done from our end, it would be a simple 2-stage procedure. So they'll have to appear for an online aptitude test where they would be gauged on quantitative and qualitative aptitudes. And after being selected in the written assessment, they would have to appear for a virtual interview with our panel. And once they are selected, we would be sending in the offer letters.
Okay, this is helpful, Kuhu. In this will be great if you could add part, because while we've talked about the process, students are very keen to generally know that what are our sort of selection panel or the selection committee really seeking for in students. And Parth, if you could really, as a dean of the school, highlight what are we seeking in the scholars who we recruit for the program, it'll be great to know about that.
I think what we are looking for in the prospective applicants and the scholars, right? I can describe them as 4 C's, right? So first C is commitment. So we want to see that you are committed to nation building, you're committed to public service, right? You're committed to sort of working and in the public policy domain. So commitment is obviously first C that we look for. Second is critical thinking. I know it's a common word being used, but it's very important, particularly in public policy domain, which is a sort of domain where you apply multiple disciplines. Not only your understanding of the subject matter, but also context matters a lot, right? Which state, which city you are working in, what the community you are working in. So I think that context is very important. And therefore, critical thinking is very important skill set that we look for, right? So that's the second C. Third is curiosity. We want people to be open-minded, to be open to different perspectives, different approaches, right? Different philosophies and ideologies even, for that matter. So I think curiosity is a very important part of what we would want to assess our applicants on. And I think so. I think those are sort of key areas, key things I would highlight. And as Kuhu mentioned, we also are quite clear that public policy requires evidence. We believe that public policy should be evidence informed, right? So evidence is not just numbers, but numbers obviously are important part of evidence. And therefore, comfort with numbers, with the data analysis and data representation is very important skill that you need to acquire. And therefore, we also assess in our written test how comfortable you are and, and whether you are going to be able to handle that work at ISPP, right? And the last C, I would say, is camaraderie, right? As we mentioned earlier, peer work is very important. Public policy is not a solo expert job, it's a team sport, right? So you have to work with the group of people, politicians, other bureaucrats in the system, communities, other stakeholders, right? So being able to work across this group of stakeholders is really very important for your success in public policy domain. And therefore, having that sense of team spirit and camaraderie is also very important criteria.
Thanks, Parth. I'll just add a small thing for all of us to also know that in the second stage of the interaction process, most of the students who have sort of appeared also get this opportunity to engage with some of the most renowned names in public policy in the country, because our faculty are the ones who are involved in the selection process. And you get to sort of ask your really sort of relevant questions at the time of your interaction with them, because they are the ones who get to know you very personally at the time of the selection process. So you can sort of ask your questions about whether you find the program is a fit for you, whether you also want to take up the program, and will it fulfill your sort of personal goals and professional goals.
We also, I think, would have alumni member also on the interview panel, right? So they would be able to ask questions about their own experience. The alumni had experience at the ISPP and of course afterwards, right? And of course, anything else they want to ask them. So I think not only they can reach out to, of course, current scholars, alumni online, but they would also have a chance to meet and talk to them at the interview panel.
Yeah, thank you for adding that part. Who do you want to give us a brief idea before we break from the session about the fee structure of the program? Because there are some questions about that we see in the QA.
Yeah, sure, Sagar. So the fee structure for the 1-year program would be 8,40,000 plus GST. That could be paid in installments, or the candidate can pay it in one go. Once you pay it in one go, you get a waiver of 10% on your tuition fee. And for the breakup, I'll just put it on the chat box so everybody can see the breakup entirety on the website.
Now, that'll be great. I think Raju had a question about that. So it'll be great to just put on the link for everyone.
Of course, of course.
I'm sure you get a lot of questions from everyone about the expensive fee of the program. Why not have Louis answer briefly about why the program is priced at, if it was a 1-year program, and students generally ask that it's too expensive if you were to compare it with, let's say, an NLU program, etc. So Louis, would you? Yeah.
Sure. It is expensive. And the reason why it is because we believe we are creating a quality product. By the way, just to let you know, your fees doesn't cover the cost of the program. We rely extensively on philanthropy to cover that cost. That's the first thing. When you're looking at the cost, I'd also like you to consider what is the return on that investment, and also what's gone into it. The average salary when you graduate is what you pay in 1 year. So from an ROI perspective, that's a very high benchmark for anyone in any school globally. Secondly, we focus a lot on what you do also after ISPP, and therefore look at it from an investment perspective. We have a placement team which works very hard and to get you all placed. Like last year, like in the past, we had 100% placement record. And that's something which we are very proud about, and which is unique in the country. And the ability to go and place you in where you can sort of start, from pretty much after graduating and start earning is something to keep in mind. The flexibility of the program, because that's all we do, we only do public policy, involves the fact that we have a small team of people working exclusively with you. And that's also reflected in the cost. We're based in Delhi, at the center of where public policy is made, as Parth talked about. And if you, what I keep telling everyone, that don't look at it over the life cycle and see how that will actually change your life and create interesting opportunities. So I remember actually thinking about it. I forgot about the story that happened way back in the 80s when I was applying to business school. My parents said you should go overseas and get an MBA, and I kept looking at it from an accountant's perspective. And I think the MBA at that time would cost something like about 6 or 7 lakh rupees. I mean, the world has changed so much since then. I mean, that's what an ISPP program costs now. That's what 35 years make a difference. And I just looked at it and said, if I put that into a fixed deposit at 15%, compared to what I would earn, that made a lot of sense. Why would I want to put that in over here? I realized that argument 35 years later was a very stupid argument of mine. And because it just created that opportunity for me, which I never imagined. When you talk to Himanshu, you talk to Soham, you talk to Pankuri, and ask them, what would you have imagined that you'd be here where you are before you joined ISPP? And all of them point blankly said no. ISPP changed my trajectory. And I think, when people ask me, what excites you most about ISPP? It's seeing how we've been able to hear what alumni say about their careers and their opportunities after coming in over here. So I think that's really what drives both Parth and I, to see how we've been able to change the lives of some of our scholars and get excited with what they do. And I've been told this many times, Louis, you're most excited when you talk about what our alumni are doing. And that's really it, because it's you guys who 1 year later, 1.5 years later, will be doing fabulous stuff and changing the world.
And I think, as I said, also, then we bring in world-class faculty, right? So that's really the advantage of the location, that it's easy to bring those faculty. And of course, they deserve compensation in proportion to what they bring to the table. So value they add to your learning process is humongous, right? Our campus is in heart of South Delhi, which is not a cheaper location. We provide very good facilities on the campus itself. There is a cafe where you can have your tea, coffee, and lunch, right? There is a sort of space to play badminton and table tennis, right? There's a full library where you can study. So I think in the heart of Delhi, we provide all of those facilities, which allows you to not only learn well, but also bond with your classmates and also with the ISPP team and the faculty. Louis is also there. I am also there all the time, right? And I think that really is a value that we create, right? And I would, as Louis mentioned, I would focus more on the value that you create and what it means for you in the future, right? So I think many people come to public policy also from corporate background, right? In corporate sector, you make hopefully enough money, but you don't really feel fulfilled in terms of what you do quite often, right? I think public policy is a very unique combination, which is what I love about public policy as a discipline and as a career. That is a discipline where you can be an activist, you can sort of fulfill your larger purpose, larger mission in life that you have, and at the same time, you don't have to be jolawala, right? You don't have to live a subsistence life, which used to be the case earlier, right? So all social activists basically didn't have much of an income, right? So I think public policy is an excellent combination of doing well while doing good.
I just want to add one more thing, which I don't think we've talked about, but all our graduates also get a certificate in public policy and international development from Chicago Harris, which is the public policy school at the University of Chicago. So for no additional cost, you also get an international certificate from one of the leading public policy schools in the world. And Parth mentioned, the faculty who are going to be teaching you at ISPP are complemented by the faculty who comes from the Chicago Harris and other schools at the University of Chicago. So recently we had a lady from the political science department actually visiting India. So she was speaking on campus, and she had not only her session, but a discussion after that about the work that she's doing about how autocrats can actually disrupt this democratic process. We've had Nobel Prize winners also come and talk over here, teach through the Chicago Harris partnership. That's what also creates a platform over here for you. Yes, Sagar, over to you.
In fact, that was my next question, Louis, about the Anubhav lecture series, and you already covered that. I
Well,
have
there's both. There's both. Well, the Anubhav lecture series is in addition to the Chicago Harris lecture series, and that's something which we work with the social sector as our way to partner and influence leadership development in the social sector through the the Chester Kocher Anubhav lecture series.
I had two questions, one for you and one for Parth, before we conclude the webinar, and probably short answers on both would really help. But I noticed that you and Parth have been calling everyone scholars throughout the session. And Parth, you could probably talk about that, but we didn't talk about the word students at all in the session, and you've been referring to as scholars. So why do we call our students scholars and not students?
That's that's a very interesting question, Sagar. I think one primary reason I would say, and maybe Louis can add to this from his perspective, uh, that at ISPP we are not focusing only on knowledge and skills. Of course, those things are very important, right? As I mentioned, we are also focusing on your ethics, on wisdom and judgment that you develop, right? Ultimately, public policy is about being wise and being having a good judgment. Because public policy, even though is evidence-based, there are many dimensions of life and communities that you cannot really put in numbers. And that requires that you have a deeper understanding of community, you have an ethical perspective on your obligation to the larger community. And I think that's why we think that a scholar is a much appropriate title for the person who joins this endeavor, joins this enterprise, right? And as I mentioned in our spell network, last L is for lifelong learning. So we want them to be a scholar and therefore a student in a sense for lifelong, right? And I think scholar is the right way of capturing our ambition about what we want our graduates and alumni to be able to see themselves as, right? And hopefully they carry that badge of honor with them throughout their life.
Thanks, Parth. That's helpful to know. I'll put the last question to Louis, which I've saved. This is, in fact, the question that came at the beginning of the webinar at 11:10, but this is the most common question we deal with regularly as the admissions team. How is the work of a public policy professional different from that of a civil servant?
It's interesting, when I got involved in the public policy space, I asked the same question, and I've learned this over the years that a civil servant at the administrative school is taught administration. It's the IAS. How do you administer things? It's not necessarily about how do you create public policy, and this was actually brought to me more acutely when Hasmukh Adya, who used to be the former finance minister, secretary in India, was talking about, why is it that public policy should also be taught for the IAS, giving the impression clearly that it's not taught, and why it's important to have public policy as a discipline even at the undergrad level. It's really how do you look at whatever we do at ISPP, how can that be sort of communicated out over here? So us scholars, if you look at our alumni rather, are the ones who are going to be over there solving problems and designing policies in a way which we believe is a more effective manner, and looking at issues in a more holistic way to be able to, really, as our tagline says, be policy leaders in a rising India. That focus which we talk about, and this is something very important. When people talk, there are various organizations, institutions, etc. I think we're very clearly focused on we're going to make India strong. We want India to be strong. How can we go ahead and do that? And that's why I come back to my last is really what we have as our tagline: creating next-gen policy leaders for a rising India.
I guess simple thing will be numbers. Only 500 people on average can become IS officer in a given year, right? While there could be many more public policy professionals in the year. And secondly, I think if you talk to IS officers, you will realize that most of them end up doing far more administrative work. So even though policy comes in their domain, right? You have to be joint secretary and above by the time you have the authority to make policy. But you are a young professional in the office of an IS officer, you would have direct way of working on public policy. And OSD works on public policy, right? So there are many avenues And much of the government work today is done by people outside the government, right? And therefore, I think public policy offers you a far deeper way to engage with the domain and in a longer period of time than even IS would be able to do.
Actually, I urge all of you guys to go to our website and download our report, which we did for administrative reform. You'll see how we've talked about the need for people in the government to get an external perspective. And that's where, all of you come into the play.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Louis and Parth. In fact, I'm sure a few of our attendees are already aware that students from ISPP have also sort of joined the UPSC in the past. So that's the kind of alumni we've had, the kind of students that we also get. A lot of people who are aspiring for UPSC end up sort of joining with choice at ISPP for the program because they find this is a program that fulfills their goals and vision and ambition more. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer this question. We hope you all had a great time sort of attending the session and were able to get the answers to the questions you had. Thanks, Parth. Thanks, Louis, for taking the time. Thanks, Kuhu, for answering all the questions for attendees. I would just want to reiterate before the end the session for today, the early bird application deadline that we have is 31st of December. This is for the entrance exam that is scheduled on the on what would be a better day for the examination, the 75th Republic Day of India, 26th of January, where we have our first entrance examination for the year. And all applicants who apply by 31st of December will get a free application fee waiver and a 25,000 rupees registration fee waiver that you will have on the total program fee. So we would urge you to apply early and our team will be in touch with you. We hope you have the numbers of our team if you would want to have any questions or queries answered. Else you can write to us at admissions@ispp.org.in. We can take up any of your queries and answer there as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join in and we wish you a great weekend.
Thank you, Sagar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Do you want to close?
Can we stop the recording?
And also, I think YouTube.
That's done.
I still see the YouTube.
Minutes. I think there are people also exiting right now.
I think if you want, you can close, then we can come back.
No, I think
quickly discussion among ourselves.
Okay, I think we're just amongst ourselves now.
Yeah.
Okay, don't allow anyone in.
I see YouTube.